So I was continuing my read through of Uncanny X-Men, in particular Chris Claremont's run, because I started with first 66 issues and they got canceled. I read giant sized, and from there I've gone issue 94 and on, and I'm on 166 now, which is a double sized issue about the seeming final initial. Basically, there's a story arc where the X-Men are fighting the Brood, which are these aliens that are parasites that can plant their offspring within other races. So they planted inside all the members, and the only one that was able to get away from having it planted inside him was Wolverine. So he has like this moral dilemma of having to save his friends, but if he fails, also being tasked with either killing them to stop the infection from spreading further. It's a really interesting story, and you also have Carol Danvers, as awful as that character would later become, involved, which is setting up for when Rogue joins the team in a few issues. So I've really been enjoying it. Um, it just seems that there's just more and more stuff to get excited over, because that's why I sing Claremont's praises, or have been singing it for the last few weeks, or I guess month or so, because it's been a really impressive, um, imaginative run that was very influential in the grand scheme of the X-Men mythos. We had a new chapter of Super today. I didn't read it because I already read the plot summary, and I mentioned I don't read the chapters unless I can get a plot summary before, because I've been burned out by that stupid manga too many times before. And this new chapter, from what I read, seems to be more of the same. Oh, Vegeta's gonna fight. No, Goku's gonna fight. No, Vegeta's gonna fight. And the only thing that piqued anybody's interest out of this whole chapter was the reveal that apparently Bardock was involved with, or had something to do with, Granola's origins. It hasn't been fully explained yet, because it's supposed to lead into 77, I think, into one after this. But I just think it's really it's funny that you have this arc that's been going for a year now, and the thing that entices people to want to read more isn't the protagonist, Goku and Vegeta have been featured throughout the whole thing, and their development, or the villain. It's simply, hey, remember that character that a lot of people like that was in that one TV special and that movie that came out a few years ago? Let's stick him in this too. That's what I find really comedic. We're getting Bardock in Super, a deceased character, before we're getting Broly. No, it's a flashback for the villain. Apparently, Bardock saved his planet, or came to his planet. And I have to, I don't like Toyotaro's writing at all. I think him and Toriyama are just complete buffoons at this point when they write stuff. But I have to give them credit. There actually was a scene, it was either in the first, second, or third chapter of the arc, where we see a great ape with Bardock's armor on. Like, people pointed that out. That's why they thought he might make an appearance. So this isn't just something they're pulling out of their backside. They have had this thought out for a while. Again, it's really comedic to me that, like, the thing people are now looking forward to more than anything else isn't to see Goku and Vegeta. It's not to see how they're going to defeat this new amazing, well characterized villain. It's just, oh, let's take this character that we barely even saw in the first place and get excited for him to appear in a flashback. It's just like the Flash movie, where nobody's excited to see Ezra Miller. They're all talking about Michael Keaton. And they were talking about Supergirl until they saw that horrendous costume she was put in. Anytime you have a series or some movie or whatever where the main draw is like very obvious, but then people aren't attracted to the main draw, they're attracted to something else. I just think that's really funny. Man, that manga just, it really is like the same story every chapter and every arc, where it's some new antagonist show, except for the tournaments, but even then there's similarities, Some new antagonist shows up, and then through some circumstance, out of the whole main cast, the only two that actually try to be proactive with dealing with this new threat are Goku and Vegeta. And then they both have multiple fights with this new villain, and usually they get whooped at least twice before being able to take him out. One of them, which is always Goku. Like you could take this arc and the moral arc, and with the exception of using some of the rest of the cast a little bit more, you wouldn't see that much of a difference. Because just like Moro, Granola has a connection with the past villain, which is Frieza, because Moro was connected to Boo. You know, it's just it's so redundant, man. You got this enormous universe that, to Super's credit, only got larger, and you use the same two characters every arc. This one guy actually, I remember when I used to post on Kensenshu, this guy was like, "People are just mad because their favorite characters aren't getting used," and I was laughing because I'm like, well, you know, if they did an arc where it was just, I don't know, Tien and Yamcha fighting somebody, I'd be more interested in that because at least that would be different. You know, there would be two characters I haven't seen fight in a long time. And I remember I actually, like, I didn't say this in the thread, but I was like, if that were true, I wouldn't even like Dragon Ball because Spider Man's not in it. They want to say he's your favorite character, then you get a fight. I wouldn't like it because he's not in this. So they always have some BS excuse for liking their little repetitive show slash manga. I'd probably rather go read Boruto than this because at least that does use a new character, even if he is basically just I guess lazier version of Naruto. He at least is a new character that they're using. DBS gonna get dry if Toriyama continues to use the same repetitive characters. But this is my thing, right? It's like you have all of these different characters that were introduced in the original series, in Z, in Super, and the only two you use over and over again are Goku and Vegeta. This entire arc, we had like one cameo from Chi Chi. I think we saw the rest of the cast at the start, and since then it's just been the two of them. I don't know how saying that means you're complaining. Well, they don't like it when people criticize their series, and they don't really like to listen to specific points of disagreement. So they have to come up with these ways of explaining away criticism. So for example, there were some people who said that we were more critical of Super because of nostalgia for the original and Z. And I'm like, well, we know that's BS because the same fans that thought Super sucked thought, you know, games like Fighters, Xuniverse 2, all this new Dragon Ball stuff that was in the gaming industry was good or even better than some of the older stuff we had. So, you know, it's just like they don't want to accept valid critiques of the garbage that's being made currently. So they like to create these different little, you know, explanations that just like brush away anything anyone says about them. It's kind of like if you have, just as a comparison, it's like if you have a woman who gets like criticized for, I don't know, doing something to her kid, and she's like, well, people are just hating on me because I'm prettier than them. It's like, yeah, that's not true. But again, that's her little way of sweeping away any specific critiques that are laid toward her. Dude, I love how none of them ever were able to address that. It's like, okay, you're gonna say people don't like Super because of nostalgia, but then why do they like all these new games? You know, like, how does that work? That the position they have is that supposedly because people like the original and Z so much, they can't or refuse to like the new series because of their bias toward the original one and Z. But then people like older games and they also like the newer games. Like no one was ever able to explain that if nostalgia makes people dislike your garbage manga so much, why are people still liking the new games even though they like the older ones too? Tell you, man, these people they just, and it sucks because if you try to have a legitimate discussion with them, they just get caught up in things that don't make any sense. We had a talk about this. I believe it was 3 weeks ago, last month, where one of the users on my stream was like, "Do you really think 18 could beat Boo?" And I'm like, "You know that this is a series where characters have enormous power boost out of nowhere, right? Especially during Super, and you're gonna sit here and start talking about power levels. Like, come on, you know." You would have said this is the same person who would have said the exact same thing about Frieza before the Resurrection F movie. Because every time Frieza showed up after the Frieza saga, he got destroyed by, by literally everybody until that film came out and gave him a big old power up. Same thing with 17, weaker than first form Cell, um, and like now is able to fight Jiren. Like I don't get where these people come around trying to have like discussions on the merits of power levels. It's just it's ridiculous to me. That's why Toriyama had the scouter blow up on Namek because he knew that that was going to be like too limiting for his stories if he has to like sit there and adhere to some specific numbers of how strong somebody is. The only character from anything relating to Dragon Ball or Z that is alive, that like was revealed to be alive during Super is are the Cell Juniors. Because I already explained that they had a backup chapter where Goten and Trunks are protecting 17's island, and then you find out that they're over there and they're like domesticated. I remember this one person was like, "That's so ridiculous." I'm like, well, I mean, if Cell was able to blow himself up and then come back from that, I don't really see where it's hard to believe that the same thing would happen with his offspring. I still want to know who 17 was able to fight against. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. And like I said, Super has some of the worst writers that have ever lived because all they had to do was just have him train with Beerus. Like they set this thing up during the I don't remember if it was in the manga, but I know it's in the show where they're given like a 24-hour period, like a day or two to get all of the fighters for their universe. All they had to do was just say, hey, this tournament's going to take place in a few months. And then we could have had 3, 4 episodes of 17 training with Beerus. Nobody would be saying he got this power up out of nowhere. Like this show has all of its solutions right in front of it and it doesn't use any of them. Imagine having a series where you can have where like it's fully explained. It can be fully explained how a character gets way stronger, and then you're just like, nah, we're gonna just have him inexplicably bounds and eons above what he was before because we feel like it. I remember when the manga because I remember I said that the Tournament of Power is the only arc of Super I actually kind of like. The manga version of that arc is just it is so rushed and awful. And that was really the first time I saw like fans that just kept defending everything about that show admit, yeah, this is not good. Like people who like the show's version of the tournament don't like the manga version because it's a very rushed, lacking in any type of character development, nonsensical matchup mess. Roshi fighting Jiren, just it's ugh. Now Toyotaro should have been gotten rid of for that. They should just have him as the artist. Get somebody else to write. By that logic, 17 should have destroyed Piccolo easily. Yeah, it was real funny going on Kensenshu. It's over for Piccolo. He can't catch up. I'm like, I'm very confident that if Toriyama or Toyotaro just decided tomorrow Piccolo will have a new power up and he'll be as strong as Goku and Vegeta, then it would just happen. Like they really I just love it when they still write stuff like that after what we saw from Frieza and 17. But this show has some of the worst fans out of any series I've ever seen. Like when they discuss stuff, their own show contradicts them. Humans can't be as strong as Saiyans. Because remember, Oop wasn't able to fight Goku at the end of Z. He wasn't human. And then remember with Ultra Instinct, they're like, "Oh, this is the form where you have to be calm and collected and all." And then when Moro was using it, he was going crazy. And maybe one day when I'm going to torture myself, I'll just read through all of Super. Like if it ever actually ends the manga, which I don't. I've been over this before. A lot of fans don't want to accept that the manga probably will go on for at least 10 years, while the show only went for 3, because it's much cheaper to just have one guy sit in the room drawing 40 pages a month than getting a bunch of voice actors and animators and a deal with some network. But it would be funny to just like read the whole manga through. It's like, is this ever going to get any better? Because out of that whole manga, there's probably like 10 chapters I think are really good, and the rest of it you can just ball up, throw it in the trash. I really hate how Raditz was just a throwaway villain. I like the idea of Goku having an older brother who could completely body him. I mean, that's one of the reasons that I was annoyed with Kishimoto, because he's literally Toriyama Jr. when it comes to villains. They make some interesting character or some character like a premise that you find they could do something with, and then they get rid of them after one arc. Whether it's Raditz, the Ginyu Force, 19 and 20, and if you want to go to Naruto, the Sound 4, Kimimaru, just any of them. Most of the Akatsuki, they just make a villain has like an interesting power, some like cool premise, toss them out like trash. We can go even further down the list. Deborah, Babidi, just it's what they do. Dude, that's the one thing Kishimoto definitely learned from Toriyama. Let me make a really interesting villain and then get rid of him after one arc. Well, no, I'm not going to put them in there because Toriyama didn't make them. That's some filler movie stuff. That's why I didn't say Broly. Like, I'm not going to blame him for stuff that he didn't write. Because I would have lumped Super 17 there, but he didn't write GT, so why should that be in there? Imagine going up to this man and be like, why didn't you use Cooler more than twice? I'm like, I didn't even make that character. I'll never forget one of the biggest L's of any Dragon Ball game. Yeah, but I'm saying that the ones you listed, like I wouldn't blame Toriyama for them not getting used because they're from the films, which he didn't write. I was gonna say one of the biggest L's of any Dragon Ball game was the first Xenoverse's plot is predicated on Toa wanting revenge for her brother Deborah, and then Deborah literally never appears in the entire game. It's like, how are you going to introduce a sister for this villain who was like a sub boss during the Buu saga, and then not use him at all in the game where his demise is literally one of the reasons the whole plot is even happening? I just thought that was so bizarre. No, I still think it's funny that the Broly movie was like supposed to be, making Broly canon, and then you still haven't seen him in anything. Like we've had now almost two full arcs of the manga, and you still the only character that was in that film that doesn't usually show up is going to be in the manga is Bardock in a flashback. That's what I said. It's like, what was the point of making him canon? Like he has no purpose on the overall plot of the show. GT was actually good though because the stakes were higher and Goku learned something from the villains. I mean, hey, if you like that show, be my guest. In Super, Goku learns nothing, nor does he gain any wisdom. But it's like that's not even the only issue with that show. Like you have no overarching plots. The villains just come out of nowhere. Like I don't. It's a really disconnected, just waste of space. Like the first two arcs are two films that they stretched out and made longer and uglier. The third arc is a tournament where in the show they have Goku seemingly get eliminated very early. They have Vegeta defeat three of the opponents, which makes you think, oh man, he's going to beat the last guy, and then whooped. And then they have some weird fight between Goku and Hit, and you're like, well, why couldn't the person that defeated most of the other side get whatever? And then the arc after that is some like it's the return of Future Trunks, who we now have to ruin the perfect ending of in Z to have his timeline get destroyed. And that arc has literally the worst ending of any arc in this entire out of all four shows and however many arcs there are between all four of them. That has the worst arc out of any of them. Oh, and by the way, it has one of the stupidest plots I've ever seen. So Goku Black exists because Zamasu got angry at Goku after losing a fight to him. But Goku only met Zamasu because he was looking for Goku Black. I hate that stupid time paradox. It's very confusing. That makes no sense. They have Trunks get these ridiculous power-ups after doing barely any training, including some weird form that they didn't want to give him Super Saiyan Blue, so they give him some weird Super Saiyan form with like blue on it or something. It's just what the hell. Then the arc after that is a tournament where the main villain, or I guess the main antagonist, I shouldn't call Jiren a villain, is just this bland, boring block with a very generic backstory that could have been written for any character. And he's actually more of he comes off as a complete buffoon and douchebag along with Goku and Vegeta because he's purposely sitting here while his universe is at stake in a tournament that decides the fate of his universe, just like this the whole time. I'm gonna fight one guy for 30 episodes. This is what smart people do. They want to save their universe. I'm just gonna sit here. Then they introduce Ultra Instinct, which is the most overrated waste of space form I've ever seen. I would like that form is more useless than any other transformation in this entire series because it loses its first fight twice. Then after that, you have some space goat that's like thousands of years old because everybody wants to be King Piccolo now. And he goes to Namek to use the Dragon Balls to make himself younger. Or excuse me, not to make himself younger, to wish his they make a big deal out of him making a wish. It's to wish his minions out of jail. which makes you think he cares about him and like he's going to be some kind of benevolent boss who cares about his men and like actually have some complexity to his character. And then you find out that he doesn't care about his men, even kills one of them by overpowering them while they're fighting Goku, which is the dumbest thing in the world. It's like you don't care about your men, but then you sat here for multiple chapters on this barren wasteland planet looking for Dragon Balls to get your men out of jail. So why would you take all this effort for people you don't care about? But again, it's like that goes back to my thing of how Toyotaro is not a good writer. So he goes to Earth, and they have this whole arc: Vegeta training and training and training, and then they have Vegeta show up after Goku loses to make you think Vegeta's going to win. They spent this arc features the most training from him out of any arc in this entire series, Z included, just for him to get his butt whooped after less than a full chapter like that. And then Moro fuses with Earth and then gets destroyed by some weird Spirit Bomb ripoff wannabe generic lame group attack. Now you have this new arc with a crybaby that wishes to be stronger, which a lot of people have a problem with. I think it makes total sense for a villain to wish to be stronger. Who is just fighting Goku and Vegeta multiple times, like Goku Black, like Moro. You know, it's just it's the same thing over and over. It's either the same thing or if it's something new, it's dumb. Like that ending from the Future Trunks arc, I wish it was the same as the other ones where, you know, they defeat Black and then everybody lives happily ever after instead of let's have the entire timeline get eviscerated and destroyed so that we can have wasted everyone's time for the last year with this arc. How dare this person beat me in a fair fight? Time to commit genocide. Goku Black's motivation makes no sense. Like you lost to one person and now you want to commit genocide. Dude, his existence makes no sense. That's the biggest issue I have with that character. He's created because Zamasu got mad at Goku and then went to go get his body, but Goku only met Zamasu because he was looking for Black. Like imagine if in real life, right, we look at the origins of Akatsuki Merchant and we find out that his parents met, I don't know, in a diner because a man sent both of them a letter to meet there, and then you find out that man was Akatsuki Merchant. Like that would be the same stupid plot where it's a time paradox. Like a person can't create themselves. It's just, oh my God. And every time a chapter comes out, 10 out of 10, it was great. The art was amazing. The story was so good. All this character development. Every time I go on Twitter, I see that. I just want to vomit. You know what's really sad? A lot of Dragon Ball fans don't like that they use Freeze over and over. And I said, you know, as much as I might get sick of seeing him and like none of the other villains again, it would make sense. It would make more sense for them to use older villains because they would have a built-in incentive to want to screw with the protagonist because they've already been defeated by them before, so they could just say they want revenge. Like it would make a lot more sense for, you know, after Moro, you have Cell come back and he's like, well, I realize I'm not the most perfect being anymore, but I'm gonna try. And then he like, you know, attempts to learn or tap into his Saiyan powers to gain Super Saiyan, God Super Saiyan, like to increase his strength. But again, it would at least there's an incentive there, you know. That's why I don't like a lot of fans of this series because they don't seem to really have an imagination. They just, oh, new character equals good, you know. That's because Dragon Ball Super appeals to the lowest common denominator of anime fans. That's what they act like. The lowest common denominator. Imagine if someone actually did make a Dragon Ball show just called Dragon Ball Bottom of the Barrel, and it's every episode there's a new transformation and some new villain shows up and they die in the same episode. and nobody cares about their like character at all because all you want to see is somebody fight in the new form. You could take a dump onto a canvas and these people would rave and scream over it. I'm telling you, Banana, if you ever want to see people just blow your mind when it comes to the stuff they like, go and look at the reviews that people have on Twitter for every chapter of Super. It's the same thing each time. Oh my God, the art was great. This was 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10. I'll really sit there just reading them like, what is so good about this? And I guess the art is okay, but the story is still as horrible to me for the reasons that were laid out here. I don't even know who this person is. Always some new character that shows up with his Pikachu avatar. Brandon left. He went to go write a Janemba Return fanfic. He's like, one day Goku gets sent to Otherworld and he sees a big yellow obese alien eating people and he tries to fight it. Fusion Reborn is literally the Saiyan movie. That all only characters in that film are Saiyans. You got Gohan versus Frieza. You have Goku and Vegeta and Goten and Trunks. That movie should just be called the Saiyan film. That's the original Broly movie, just Saiyans. I like the parts that remind me of the old Dragon Ball, but Super is like not the best. That's putting a little too generous. There are a lot of things that are good that are like not the best. Now Hachiyak had Piccolo in it. And that wasn't even a movie, that was a tie-in for a game, which is why it never came out in the US. Let's see what else is here. No, that manga just every month it's the same thing. New chapter comes out. Everybody raves about how amazing and great it is. I sit there scratching my head. I could do a top 10 chapters for Super that like of ones I actually like, but it's very few. Gotta love how these writers dispose of these villains like dirty tissue. I'm telling you, Toriyama and Kishimoto are cut from the same cloth. Like in Naruto, if you're not Orochimaru or Kabuto, and I guess yeah, Obito to an extent, you might as well just pack it up, or Itachi, because everybody raves about Pain, but he's introduced, I'd say, pretty late into the overall show and is like taken care of within 100 chapters. Like he's really not around that much. Because the other ones all show up during part one out of like the big group. Because even with Obito, he's introduced in part two, but he's mentioned for the first time during part one. So like the presence of that character, and he lasts pretty much throughout all of Shippuden, unlike most of the Akatsuki members. Dude, I'll never forget being so pissed about Hidan. It's like you have an immortal villain who's one of the few antagonists in the entire series to permanently kill one of the like mentor figures with Asuma, and then just you get rid of him after one arc. He could have been Shikamaru's archenemy. God, if any Akatsuki member should have made it to the end of that show, it should have been him. with that ritual where he puts that circle on the ground and he does something to himself, it happens to you. We only get to see him do that one time before they get rid of him. And then during the fourth Shinobi War, they have Kakuzu mention, oh, I don't see Hidan. I guess he's alive. And I was reading like, oh, they're gonna bring him back, and then he never shows up again. It's like, so wait, what was the point of alluding to the possibility that he might still be alive? Like having his partner say that if you're not gonna use him anymore. It's weird. So are well talking about good and poor story writing. It's not even that, it's just like a really weird trope with both of these series of making some villain that is interesting, and then after a very short period in the series, getting rid of them. And the villains leave no lasting impact. They're just a power level to surpass. You know what's really funny? King Piccolo probably is the most important Dragon Ball villain, actually. Like if you look at him and then compare him to like Frieza, Cell, Buu, he's the first one that kills off like multiple, main protagonists. The first one that like uses the Dragon Balls for some kind of ulterior motive and like actually, does some diabolical stuff and tries to take over the world. And like that whole thing of like being tyrannical pretty much comes from him. So a lot of people say, oh, Frieza's the most important one because he's been around the most and he shows up over and over and he destroyed the city. But the one that like Frieza and the rest of them borrow the most from is King Piccolo. If Toriyama going to continue making filler villains, he might as well not make any. I don't know what he's doing. Yeah, this person on Discord, I asked them how they're doing because I'm so considerate and nice. Wasted Protenko. I'll make that name of my new villain, Protenko. It don't need to be so self-deprecating. That's why your comment got hidden because you put a swear word in it. I don't know why they do that. They act like people post fights on this website. They've posted assassinations and different killings that were caught on video. But if you say a bad word, oh, we gotta protect people. I keep telling the site that this video is not made for kids. Exactly, that would have been some very interesting storytelling and given Shikamaru some development. Dude, imagine if the one Akatsuki member, right, that killed his mentor stuck around and like every time he saw him, he was like planning out how to deal with that technique. I just can't believe that Kishimoto really made an immortal villain and got rid of him after one arc. Hidan's the only member of the Akatsuki to never meet Naruto. Like that's how short he was around. Dumb YouTube. Yeah, this site is pretty dumb. No, really, like in the manga, the only Akatsuki member that doesn't meet Naruto is Hidan. Like, imagine the rivalry that would come out of that. Dude, imagine if Hidan used that technique on Choji, and then like Shikamaru has to like finally kill him to make sure that that doesn't end up happening to his best friend. Like, don't you failed your master. Now you're gonna fail your closest ally. Now, when I think about it, never seen them. They didn't. The only thing that has the two of them encountering each other is some filler in the show, and like one of those infinite tsunami dreams. Dude, same thing with Sasori. It's like you give him this really interesting backstory, some cool visual powers with the puppets, and you get rid of him after one fight. Dude, the only Akatsuki members that are used like really well, in my opinion, are Obito, Pain, and even that's debatable. Itachi and Kizame. If you're not one of the four of them, you might as well not even be in this story. All the other ones, except for maybe if you want to kind of count her Conan, all of the rest of them have the same trope of showing up once or twice and then getting killed off. You see Deidara defeat Gaara, and then like one fight after that, he fights Sasuke and then blows himself up. So yeah, I've never seen a villainous organization that looks so cool and strong. Like when part one ended, like just the build up, right? Go completely by the wayside like a joke. Because I told you, Kishimoto is Toriyama Jr. He knows how to make an interesting character, good designs, unique powers, appealing backstory, whatever, and then do very little with them. That was funny when he said that he wanted to write a story for Rock Lee but never had the time. I was like, you had 700 chapters. The hell are you talking about? I mean, he's the same person that was. It's like whatever. I just think that's funny. He acts like he only had like 2 or 3 movies. He had, what was it, 15 years? However long the serialization Naruto was. I know it was over 10 years. And I never had the time. Yeah. Yeah, it's really sad what they did with him. Like, if you told me his last moment of relevancy would be a drunk fight against a guy that was only defeated because he died from a disease that he already had before the fight even began, I would have laughed at you. Completely wasted character. That's a real shame. You know, Toriyama actually drew a picture of him. I think he's the only Naruto character that Toriyama sat down and drew. That fight with Sasori would have been so much more interesting if Sakura would have been outmatched. Like, I don't have a problem with the fight. Well, look, she won because Chio was there and was controlled. Like, all Sakura had to do was just punch. Chio controlled her, how fast she was, her reflex and everything. That was basically Chio versus Sasori with a Sakura puppet. Dude, wouldn't it have been cool to see Sasori versus Rock Lee? Because remember, Rock Lee's supposed to be like really fast, like 2 fast opponents from opposing sides. Like, wouldn't that have been way more interesting than the puppet show? I'm not even like a big Naruto fan, and that would have been a way better matchup to like see him actually die on, because at least would have had 2 fights instead of 1. Damn. Yeah, those Akatsuki members, man, they drop like flies. They they build them up as these really strong villains, and then every time one of them shows up, with the exception of like 4 people, they die. It's just so lame, man. Dude, Kakuzu is also like another case of just horrible, like, right. Like, I mean, you have a villain who has enhanced his lifestyle by getting other people's lives, and then he just again shows up once, has like what, 2 fights. The first one he's not even really fighting; it's mostly Hidan fighting 4 people, and then just gets killed off. We get a little bit about his backstory, that he fought the first Hokage and survived. We don't get to see it, no flashback. Just it's lame. Again, the character isn't lame. What we have of him doesn't suck, but just the execution is very minimal. Let's have a character who fought the original leader of the clan of Konoha, and not show what that fight looked like. No, you know what, Akatsuki Merchant, that's not true. Like, I don't know what you mean by that, but Kazame lasted much. Like, he's introduced before all the other members, with the exception of Itachi's introduced simultaneously with him, and last upwards into the 500s of chapters. So he's around for most of the story and shows up at least 4 times before dying and gets 3 fights, which is more than any other Akatsuki member except for maybe Obito or Itachi. So I'm gonna have to disagree with you on that one. I wish the other members got the attention and staying power that he had. The only thing they messed up on him was I don't think they explored his backstory enough. But as far as usage, he's used better than most of the other members. Izame is a shark guy, right? The Itachi's partner, the one that was blue with the spiky dark blue hair. They had the sword that would eat chakra. Now, that's a hard pass. Dude, the only 3 characters introduced in part 1 that do more in part 2, with the exception of me, I don't want to count Naruto and Sasuke because you could say it's like even, are Might Guy, Kizame, and Itachi. Those are the only 3 characters that first show up in part 1 that get to do more in part 2 than the original. Everybody else. If you show up again, you get demoted. They gave Neji 3 fights during part 1. In part 2, all he does is fight a clone of himself and get killed by a tree. He killed himself and still won. Yeah, because he didn't give up the information. I don't even want to look at James. He made the top 5 anime list and he put what was number 1? My Hero Academia. He said it's the godfather of all manga and anime. He said when you listen to the music in the anime, it's like listening to Mozart. And he almost thought that My Hero was written by Shakespeare from how poetic it was. We have to call this the underused villain tree. Laugh, my Hero Academia is not even my top 20. Now we saw that. Hey, you know what? Since you deleted the video, we don't have proof that you said that. But if you ever want to put the video back up, we'll all see it because you made that series sound like it was the best thing since sliced bread. No, he said Hunter x Hunter was in the bottom 30. Yeah, we saw his list. I do remember. I was like, well, how are you gonna do a top 5 anime and then not put Dragon Ball in there? Dude, Dragon Ball objectively is the most influential out of any of those series. Period. Like people that don't even like any of these Japanese cartoons know who Goku is. It's like with Mario, where like people who don't even play games know who that is. That was nuts. Like I wouldn't say Dragon Ball's the greatest show ever out of any because I it would be high for me, but it wouldn't be number 1. But to not have it in the top 5 just seems really insane to me. Nah, Brandon. I saw that list and I left a comment and then he got rid of the video. He rebooted his channel again. So that's why I made the joke that he reboots his channel more than Sony reboots the Spider-Man movies. I couldn't believe that list. Said this is sacrilege. I really liked the rivalry between Kizame and Guy. Yeah, that was again one of the few things that I thought was really interesting that you took this mentor figure and actually gave him a rival in the opposing organization that you respect. You know, like outside, like the only other older type character that really gets a rival in the Akatsuki is Kakashi with Obito, and even then, for most of the series, he doesn't even know that's him. So it was nice. Guys are really just a strange character, just in terms of just like they don't use the part one kids that much during part two, but then they like toward all the way toward the end of the whole series during the fourth Shinobi War, you like use him more and more. Where I'm like, what the hell? It's just such a strange trajectory because you would think like the kids are supposed to be the ones they focus on the most because that was how it was during part one, and then during part two, like, nah, let's use Guy more than his than his own group. Like really, the only team that they use that much in part two besides Team Seven is Shikamaru's team. Told you, Kishimoto just he is a really talented person when it comes to making an interesting character, and horrendous when it comes to actually using them. No, I am not excited to read Boruto. I heard that the villain is from space. It's like what? In a series that was originally about ninjas, we have intergalactic shinobi. Like that's how you know they ran out of ideas. When they have to start bringing in, and again, it's like if during part one, during part two, you had some villain that was from space, it would be like, all right, whatever. That's something that they originally established, but now we're going to introduce the solar system to be filled with other sentient beings for the sake of stretching this show out. Like it was basically jutsu prowess to martial arts prowess. I'm just imagining that fight, Rock Lee versus Sasori. Like two fast opponents, one controls puppets, one has gates. That could have been so cool, and Kishimoto just blew it. I told you that when I read through part two, the whole thing for the first time a few weeks ago, I was like, yeah, this is just as bad as I remember. There's some all right parts, but especially the conclusion of it, that last 100 or so chapters. Mm-mm. That's why when people say they want stories to end, and I'm waiting for it, it's like what? So it can suck, Like I'd say Naruto, the last arc is probably the worst out of any of them in the entire series. I find it to be very stretched out in some spots and then very rushed in others. And it's got one of the worst final intact. Like I'll take Kid Buu any day over Kaguya. I don't know where that floating broad came from. Like every Naruto fan I know just talks about how cool Madara was. It's like, why isn't that the final villain? Why is it this floating broad that had no type of foreshadow? Oh my god. Dude, you go on any Naruto forum, they talk about how cool Madara was. Like he's one of the most universally praised antagonists from any series I've ever seen. And then you would think, okay, he's gonna, because like foreshadowing for him is crazy. The first time we see him is at the end of part one when Naruto's fighting Sasuke, and there's a statue of him and Hashirama. So there's like literally hundreds of chapters of us like knowing that this person existed, and you have him show up. You start fleshing out his character, and then he gets tossed out like trash with a stupid redemption story. It's the same. It's not as. It's even worse, I would argue, with Orochimaru. It's like during part one, sticks that curse mark on Sasuke, basically kills the third Hokage. Third Hokage sacrificed himself, but he dies to stop him. He's the whole reason the last arc even happens, because Sasuke's trying to go with the sound four to him to get stronger, and you think, oh, he's gonna be the main villain of part two, because like there's multiple things, like of any antagonist introduced during part one, he's had the biggest role out of any of them, indisputably. And then part two comes around, and all he does is have some like, whatever type fight with Naruto, then get absorbed by Sasuke and disappear for damn near the entire story, all the way up until the last arc. Like, and then in Boruto, now he has a kid. Like, oh my god, that's why I said that this series, man. Like rewatching part one or reading part one, it's really insane to think that the villain who is chalked up as the main antagonist going forward, he gets completely sidestepped for a guy that we thought was dead that hides his face behind a mask for most of part two, an organization where most of its members get killed after one or two appearances or fights, a floating space broad, and a villain who has an interesting backstory, was foreshadowed heavily, but gets treated like trash compared to, again, a random floating space broad. This is her, the whole fight. No one wanted me, but I'm here. Yeah, that's correct. No one wanted her. I didn't see anybody saying, please get rid of Madara and give us another final antagonist. Man, that show or that series, because I read I mentioned I watched very little Shippuden. I just read part two, the manga version, because it was much shorter. Madara was the most interesting villain in Shippuden. I mean, come on, he literally took out most of the Shinobi Alliance by himself. That's why seeing him get defeated and sidestep for another person to take over as the final villain just seemed really bizarre to me. Like, what possesses a series creator to go, here's this really interesting villain I made. I want to do them for a while. I'm showing how strong they are. Let me just get rid of them. Let's not have the heroes defeat them and the day is saved. We can have our happy ever-ending epilogue. No, let's have random broad that floats defeat him and take over. But then he gets sidestepped by some chick from space. And just like I said, Kishimoto's really good at making a villain or character that has like an interesting power and personality and backstory, but horrible when it comes to actually using them. That's the final villain of Naruto. Not Orochimaru, not Madara. I mean, hell, I would have even taken Kabuto, because that's someone who still was like, yeah, he's the number two guy to Orochimaru, but he still has been around since basically the beginning of the series. Introduced to us even before Orochimaru, actually, and has played his own role in making things worse for Naruto. So I don't know who thought that was appealing to just this damn series. And watch Boruto end with like, it's gonna have some really cool last villain, right? Who's gonna have an interesting power, lore, backstory, whatever. And then he gets like sidestepped for some random floating person. You're like, oh, here we go again. I still would probably read Boruto than read Dragon Ball Super. Because again, at least with that, I know it's not just Naruto every single, like, you know what I'm talking about. It actually has like a new character. Who else didn't I talk about? There's some other person I'm trying to remember who it was that didn't get mentioned. I think we brought up all of the Akatsuki members. No, no, but like I said, Hidan is the most frustrating, an immortal villain that you get rid of after one arc. He could have a rivalry with Shikamaru. He could have came to Konoha and like held somebody hostage with his jutsu where, hey, if you don't give me this, I'm gonna cut myself and I'll be cutting them. Like literally the possibilities were endless with a character like that, and they just didn't do anything with him. See, I'd say he's probably the one that I'm most irritated with the handling of. Imagine a rivalry that could have sparked between Naruto and Madara after Naruto just watched this man dispose of and kill most of his allies. Well, I still think the Hidan thing would have been more interesting because he's introduced earlier, and you have enough arcs between when he's introduced to when the series ends to like realistically have him keep coming back with like different plots and ideas. Dude, imagine if Kakuzu like stole one of Naruto's friends' I don't know hearts, and then like that made him have a rivalry with him. Or you could do that with somebody else, you know. That's why it's so frustrating all the different things that Kishimoto could have done with one of them, and just was like, nah. Time to introduce another character I'm not going to use. And then this guy was like getting mad at me because I said that all the kids from Boruto are clones of their parents. I mean, it's true. No, nobody wants to believe that, but it's true. Like, oh, Boruto doesn't want to be Hokage. It's like, okay, but he still looks exactly like Naruto. He still has like the same hyperactive personality. I mean, come on. Yeah, you know, like Choji's daughter, for example, right? She likes to eat. You know, like I mean, you get what I'm saying. Then with like with Shikamaru's kid, he literally has the exact same hairstyle and powers. Like he's a clone. The exact same powers, pretty much the exact same appearance. And then with Sai's son, he's him with blonde hair. That really could have challenged Naruto's convictions, but nope, let's replace the wrestling villain with the floating space woman. Dude, I've heard that one of the villains from Boruto actually is from space. Again, I haven't read any of that. I'm not looking forward to reading it, but I'm very tempted, especially since Kishimoto came back as writer about a few months ago or recently, something like in within the last couple of months. That's really interesting to me because it seemed like he washed his hands with Naruto and now is coming back. Maybe he'll finally do something with the characters that he didn't use during anything after part one. Oh, and let's not forget Metal Lee, Rock Lee's son, that looks exactly like him. Wants to, dude. This guy actually tried to say that Metal Lee was not a clone. Like he looks exactly like him. He's apparently into taijutsu as well. Like what? Oh, his personality is different. It's like no, it's not. It's the same thing of the hard worker achieving strength through determination and grit. It's like it's the same plot. I think what they should have done was just have whatever class Boruto has, right? Like have the him and Sarada and then whatever the other guys name Mitsuki, whatever, the three of them as one group, and then it's like that's the only child team, and then all the other prominent characters are adults from part two. Like the rest are like Naruto age characters that would be the central cast besides that core group of three. Because the rest of these new guys are just clones. And I find it very hard to believe that like all these adults got together and were like, let's all have kids at the exact same time. Which that guy actually tried to challenge me. I was like, you have 7 or 8 kids, all from like the same group. They're all the same age, all born like within the same year of each other. You don't get where that's like a real hard plot contrivance, but okay. I rest my case. That's why the show had to bring back Jiraiya for a couple of episodes in some time travel arc because they realize no one really likes these new characters. They're just clones. That's what Boruto should be called. Hey, imagine if Boruto was called Naruto Attack of the Clones, where it's just like all the kids are clones of the parents. Like, why would I want to use whatever it was Shikadai, whatever, a character who has this jutsu where he can do possessions of people with the shadows when I can just use Shikamaru, a stronger, way more interesting character, by virtue of how much longer he's been in the story. You know, it's like I don't get it. Naruto is this hero who swears he'll protect all his friends, only to watch his villain kill all the people he swore to protect. I mean, it's just like I'll bring Sasuke back to the village. That's why that episode was called "Was the Promise That Could Not Be Kept." Maybe Naruto would have started questioning just how strong he really is. Or they can stop having one person always be the only one that saves the day. Like, you look at the stuff with Pain, he destroys the whole village. The Hokage couldn't stop him. All these different Jonin couldn't stop him. It took a Genin, because Naruto was still a Genin during part 2, and technically even into the last, to be able to win. And like nobody goes and says, we need to really reevaluate our levels of strength if a Genin is the one that saves the village. You know? Let's talk about how much of a hypocrite how Naruto is. Well, somebody already made that video where they talked about how like Naruto, like part 1 was supposed to be about this person that like becomes stronger through hard work, but then you find out that his dad was Hokage and that he's the reincarnation of of Kaguya's son or some crap, you know, just all this other like destiny mythical stuff. He was given a godlike power from the rip. I would still say at least with that he had to work for it, but like during part 2 when all the other stuff is revealed, yeah, it's completely hypocritical. Like he doesn't just instantly, you know, because he has the Nine Tails chakra, he doesn't instantly know how to use it. He has to work to get um to make it something he can just wield whenever he wants or at will. But during part 2 is when they start like showing, yeah, it doesn't really matter how hard you work. He had all this stuff in favor of him. So I say again, why isn't Rock Lee the main character? And you're right. I would have loved to have seen them use again. If I wrote part 2, I would have the only character that would have been used. How to explain this? I would have used Rock Lee and Neji a lot more. Like the two of them, Choji, Kiba, like that group that went on that retrieval mission. Because that whole group actually trained to become stronger. They weren't born to some fantasy clan where they get, you know, some eye power up or any of that. It's part 2 that kills me. Yeah. That's why I said I'd give part 1 9 or 10 out of 10, just very easily. But part 2, you'll be lucky if I give that thing a 5 or a 6. And even that's being generous. It has some good ideas, some all right moments, but just as a whole, I'm not The biggest fan. That's why I couldn't even like I never bring myself to watch it. I'll read it um, just to get it over with. Dude, imagine like with the Akatsuki. Oh my God, there's this villainous organization we need to all train for, and then they all get defeated by like the same 4 or 5 people. Like literally, the only Akatsuki member that loses to someone that's not from Team Seven, only two, excuse me, are Kizame and Hidan. Like all the rest of them are defeated by Team Seven. So it's like again, what's the point of having these other teams if they're not actually going to defeat any? Like, dude, Hinata couldn't even defeat like a. She couldn't do anything against Pain. Even Konohamaru was able to hurt one of Pain's sages, if you remember, one of his bodies. Just completely pathetic, man. He said, "Yeah, facts." I think part one's way better than part two. I'd watch part one in a heartbeat. It just sucks that part two is like way longer, and they found like you would think that would give them more time to do stuff, but somehow no. I remember when Akatsuki Merchant said that that the filler in Naruto is boring. I'm like, well, hell, I'd rather watch the filler than the than the actual arc. At least some of those use characters that they don't use normally. Like they get creative with those more often than not. No, it's just really sad to see that show turn out the way it did. He was given a godlike power from the rip. Dude, if you told me, because it really made Naruto like non-relatable to me anymore. That like this character who like during part one he's still relatable because you all the rest of that crap hasn't been revealed. But for it to be decided that his dad was one of the 4 people ever to be leader of the entire village, that he's the like reincarnation of this mythical figure. It's just I think that that's really lame, and it hurt my enjoyment of the character. And it was all stuff that I don't think Kishimoto had to do or should have done. The Akatsuki still had the coolest aesthetic out of any other characters in the show. That's what I'm saying. They had these really interesting looks, while at the same time being connected by that jacket that they wore. And it really sucks that again Kishimoto made some really good designs, very interesting powers, and just botched the execution so much. Like most of the members of that group, somebody pointed out, there's this is supposed to be the big bad group of the whole series, right? Most of them are taken out within the first half of Shippuden. It gave you a sense of danger when you saw one of those. Yeah, I remember, when because I watched part one of Naruto when it came out on Cartoon Network in the US initially. It was at like 2000, I think 5, because yeah, it started when I was in like second grade. I remember when right after the third Hokage died, you see these 2 figures in these black coats, and then one of them's looking for Naruto, and then you find out one of them is Sasuke's brother. I was like, who are they? And then Jiraiya won't even let Naruto fight them. Like that's because you have to remember that most antagonists in the series up to that point, even Orochimaru, Naruto attempts to fight, but he doesn't even get to fight the two of them because it's already established they're way stronger than he ever even is within a hairs of being powerful enough to fight. But see, that goes back to my thing of how part one was really good at getting me excited for what was to come, and then part two shows you what's to come, and it sucks. Like the only thing that was introduced in part one that part two made me go, yeah, that's actually kind of cool, was and I know I hate this character, was the Sasuke versus Itachi fight. Because again, at least that was something they foreshadowed from the start of the show that like came to pass. And then they screwed it. They still like have partially messed it up for me by saying, "Oh, Itachi was sick." A character that at no point had ever been shown with any illness whatsoever. He was sick. Dude, that was the go-to card to get out of any situation where a villain was too strong. They're sick. Oh, Kimimaro just beat Naruto and he beat Rock Lee and he's beating Gaara. Oh, he's sick, he dies. Oh, Itachi is so strong and he could probably beat Sasuke. Oh, he's sick. Like, where did these magic illnesses come? But at least with the Kimimaro thing, that was a character we just met, so I can buy this new person we've never seen before is sick. At no point did it talk. Like, I still go on the Naruto wiki trying to figure out when did he contract this illness. I wish somebody would explain, when did Itachi get sick. I read his first appearance in part 1, and I read his second appearance, which was in part 2, and then his third. Like, nowhere does he get sick. Oh, so that's an irritating show. And then I remember when me and my brother were watching, because he's only just seen Naruto this year. I actually tricked him into thinking that Haku killed Sasuke, because the next episode preview has Naruto going, I hated you, but you gave your life up for me. And then I was like, oh, are you gonna miss him? He's like, kinda. And then when they have the scene where Sakura's on top of Sasuke and he like starts, I guess, making noises or whatever, I'm like, you really thought they'd kill one of the main characters off in the first less than 20 episodes out of a 700 episode show? I mean, looking back at it, I wish they did. But hey, that's another story. Dude, there are 3 times in that series where Sasuke should have died and Kishimoto just wouldn't let him because he loves him so damn much. The first time was when he's getting slashed up by Haku. Because again, like, he got hit all over the place and everybody around him thought he was deceased. The second time was when Deidara blew himself up because he was right next to him. And the third time is when him and Naruto were taken out by Madara. I would have been fine with him dying during any, and then we could focus on other people. Dude, he has more plot armor than Naruto does. Like, they very rarely put Naruto in a situation where he just is like completely helpless and on the verge of dying. Like, you don't really see him in that state that often. How you feel about drama, suspense, anime like Death? I've never seen that. People always think if you've seen one, you've seen the other, or like a whole bunch of other ones. Like, there are people that if you like Dragon Ball, what do you think of Bleach? I've never seen it. I've heard of it. I think it used to come on Adult Swim, but I never sat there and watched it. I know that people complained about the ending being rushed. The creator's health was bad or something, but I didn't see it. No, man, that's why if I'm discussing 1 or 2 particular shows, I'd rather people talk about what I'm saying about those 1 or 2 particular shows, because if you bring up something else, I might not be aware of it. Like, I know some people who have read every single, or like most, just giving you an example, Spider-Man comics. So if I talk to them and ask them, what are your favorite arcs, your favorite writers, they could tell me some people. But if I ask them, oh, what do you think of this X-Men story? Well, it's like, I don't read X-Men, just stuff like that. Where you always have to be mindful of what stuff they've read or what they haven't. Yeah, I've been mentioning over and over that I've been reading the Chris Claremont's run on X-Men, which was historic. Like, you very rarely get a writer that stays with a book for as long as he did with Uncanny. 15 years from issue 94 to like 270. That is crazy. Now the only anime you like is Sailor Moon. And the only comic you like is I don't even know which one to mention. I'm not. I remember we had this one joke of like because people like to accuse somebody of being gay, and it's like you might like Black Panther, but you love Pink Panther. It's like just because Pink Panther is pink, it automatically means that if a man likes him, he's gay. Like it's just so just over the top in terms like just in terms of what it implies and like how insane that is. Yeah, you got exposed. Even though we already know your favorite anime is Pokemon because that's what you decide to make your avatar. You don't need to lie anymore. We already caught you. You already been revealed. Dude, I'm telling you, Naruto is just such an irritating show. Like I stream and smoke. What was I gonna say? The thing about Dragon Ball is they don't really have villains that are like the main antagonists. Like that person could have lasted longer. Like I feel like Frieza and Cell both get enough time where you understand who they are. Um, and even with like Fat Boo, he gets enough time. But like with Super Boo, Kid Boo, the Boro, the rest of them, I just they're not around that much. And a lot of times, again, they have an interesting premise, but the execution is very poor. Like Deborah is basically just there to test Gohan and to create a circumstance where Piccolo and Krillin are incapacitated. And it sucks because like he's the ruler of the demon realm, and we don't get to see any of that. Oh, I'd love for them to bring Cell back, but I think they're going to botch it because I don't think they're going to use Gohan in like the way they should, where he either gets to kill him again or play some really big role in defeating him again. I don't think they're going to give him any character development, like having Cell realize I'm not the best fighter in the world, but that doesn't mean I can't be again if I don't do certain stuff. I just don't think they're going to do anything interesting. Like just Toyotaro has shown he is not a good writer. I actually was going to write my own idea of a second Cell arc and what that would look like in Super. But it has to give Gohan something to do. You can't just have a character who killed this villain last time around. Well, the few times here that's not Goku killed any main villain and just do nothing with it. I doubt they'll bring back Cell, but I'll be surprised. I mean, I doubt that they bring back Broly. You realize we hadn't seen Broly in anything that wasn't a video game since Bio Broly? You know how many years between that and the Broly movie there was? Like if they'll make a villain that's non-canon return, I'm pretty sure they have a chance of bringing back somebody who is canon. Dude, I watch the fan What If all the time. You can do it, brother. Dude, I remember somebody said that they won't bring back Cell because Toriyama and Toyotaro don't feel like drawing the spots on his body. Like they can't just give him a new form without spots. And I said that's why if that's true, if the only reason they won't bring back this villain is because of his design, which again is just some spots on like whatever, then Toriyama is the laziest man that ever lived. Like I've drawn Cell before. You just draw him and then you color him and then you put the spots. Like it's not. Yeah, Golden Frieza. We could have Golden Cell. We can have Platinum Cell. We can have Mint Green Cell. You don't have to give them spots. Like I don't know what's wrong with these people. No, I think they would screw it up. It sucks too because the chapters for Super are like 40 pages long, so they have like more time to do things in one chapter than Toriyama did, for example. But they just I still think they would botch it, and they would botch it with any villain. If they brought back Super Boo, they'd screw him up, Kid Boo. I mean, look what they do to Fat Boo. They have him fight once every 2 years and then go to sleep. His powers are too strong. Then you make a villain whose powers can trump his or can, combat his. Like, it's not. I said that show is so front. Like, the fans of this show, they have no imagination. Every time they come up with an excuse, they're just like, yeah, this makes sense. I love DBZ. Suck to see waste potential. Yeah, that's all Super is. Just create some that here and there sounds interesting and then just botch it. Brand over there saying, yeah. I doubt they'll bring back Cell. I doubted they'd bring back Broly and they still did it. I don't doubt anything anymore. I doubted they would have Ultra Instinct lose to Jiren, but it still did. Which I was glad too. I was like, yeah, we don't need another transformation saving the day. Let's have some more creative. Dude, that's the only twist in Super that actually surprised me. Having Ultra Instinct, lose to Jiren, and then having Frieza and 17 like still be revealed to be in the tournament. Like, I thought it was just going to be 2 or 3 episodes of Goku versus Jiren, and then it was like, nope. No, the last episode of that show I do like, because it was nice to see someone that's not Goku get used, even if it is a villain that they bring back way too damn much. No, I said Tournament of Power is the only arc of Super I actually like. Again, the anime version, the manga version is just complete and utter sped up, fast paced garbage. Goku didn't have full control of UI, so that was going to happen. Oh, get out of here with that. I doubt this will happen. This was going to happen anyway. Dude, they had an entire episode of him. Well, first of all, they foreshadowed the form before that. Then they have an entire episode of him going, oh, my friends believe in me, which gets anyone to believe this new form is going to be at least the person that it's introduced in the arc to fight. And then it doesn't. And they wanted you to think 17 and Frieza were eliminated because when they had him get hit by Jiren and knocked out, there's like this really dire mute. Like, get out of here with that. I don't even want to hear it. That show was trying as hard as it could to get you to think Goku was going to beat Jiren with that form, and then when he didn't, everybody was surprised. Go on Kensenshu. You can go look at the episode. Dude, all this stuff is still there. You can go look at the episode reviews. People thought 17 was dead, that he blew himself up. And then when he came out of the smoke, Perfect Cell 2.0. Don't even try that. That was going to happen anyway. Not at all. That show tried as hard as it could to get you to think, yep, it's over. Universe 7's about to lose. Because I completely buy the idea that if Jiren won, he would just wish back all the universes like Goku did. Excuse me, like 17 did. So, that there was really no reason to believe that him winning the tournament couldn't have happened. They had the dire music. They had Frieza disappear after Jiren smacked him down like 2 episodes before that. They had 17 believed to be deceased, to where they even took him off the board of contestants. And you're going to say that was going to happen anyway. Yeah, it was a bait and switch. It's just like with Gohan and Cell. The entire Cell saga. We need Goku to beat the androids. We need Goku to beat the androids. Then he finally fights the big bad last android after some training. It's like, hey, I can't do it. I quit. That shocked everybody when that came out. There had never been a single villain in that entire series that Goku just gave up fighting against. And then they took his son, who they built up for 3 arcs up to that point, to surpass his dad and actually had him win. One of the best moments in the entire goddamn series, because of that foreshadowing. It surprised people. At the same time, the surprise didn't feel like it wasn't earned. If you go back even further, look at the Saiyan saga. Goku, where are you? We need you to beat the Saiyans. And then Goku shows up. He whoops Nappa. You think he's going to whoop Vegeta. And then he gets trounced by Great Ape Vegeta, and then Gohan and Krillin and have to save him with Yajirobe. That was surprising too. Because the whole arc builds up Goku to be the one that's going to save the day, and he doesn't. Goku gave up because he was weak. They needed Gohan to replace him. No, what I'm saying, okay, some number from George is calling me. What I am saying is, if you look at the entire series up to that point, there was never a single villain that Goku had given up on fighting, which is why when that came out, it was surprising. And the entire arc before that has everyone saying, we need Goku, we need Goku, we need Goku, we need Goku. Because it's a red herring. Like, it's the same thing Stinky said, bait and switch. I still think the Saiyan Saga one was more surprising because, you know, you have Goku go to fight Vegeta in this little private area, and he's doing, like, all right. And again, none of this stuff ever feels like it's just pulled out of nowhere because you see the other characters train. Like, you saw Gohan and Krillin train throughout that arc to where you can believe, yeah, they can take a few punches from the big bad antagonist. That one fight bring me back. Hell, even when Super Saiyan was first introduced, it was surprising because, you know, no transformations before other than Great Ape, which had at that point been long since not used anymore. Goku gave up because he was weak. He was weak against Frieza too. He still didn't give up. He was weak against Vegeta. His body literally collapsed against Vegeta. And he still didn't quit. He sat there. And then by happenstance, Gohan and Krillin sensed that he was getting weak and then came back and saved him. Like, he literally gets weak against every villain. But the only one he ever gave up on fight was like, no, I can't do this. Someone else has to take my place. It's Cell. He was weak against King Piccolo. King Piccolo literally shot out his leg and shot him in the shoulder. And he still had to beat him. Yeah, Goku versus Vegeta is, in my opinion, the second best fight in the whole series. So Goku really knew he couldn't beat Cell. Yeah. But like I said, every villain he was weak and tired against. But the only one he quit on and said, I can't fight you anymore was Cell. Which is why Gohan being the one to defeat him was actually surprising when it happened. Had never been done before in the whole history of that damn show. And that's another reason why Z is infinitely better than Super, because when there was something that happened that was new or had never been done before or was surprising, it actually felt earned. You didn't see Gohan disappear from the show with no training and then come back magically stronger like 17 in Super. Yeah, there's a reason DBZ is the most influential anime of all time. And it's not just because characters are buff or any of this other stupid cosmetic crap. You actually have a story where an author who wasn't just demented as he is now, tried to pace things out, tried to have foreshadowing, actually cared about what he was making, gave multiple characters something to do. There's an entire period on Namek where there's no Goku. He's just on the little ship coming over there, and it's just Gohan, Vegeta, and Krillin. I'd kill for something like that now at this point. This kind of makes me mad how powerful 17 is, but no, there's nothing wrong with liking 17 as a character. I like him as a character too. I'm simply explaining that to have him show up in Super and then magically be this much stronger when all they had to do was just have him train with Beerus for a couple of episodes, some training montage here or there. They really shot themselves in the foot, because now any character that's been gone for a little while, you can say, oh, they're just magically much stronger. So this has nothing to do with like not liking his character. I was glad they brought him back. I still think that he has one of the weakest, biggest cop-out power-ups of all time. Him, Roshi, and Frieza, all magically stronger out of nowhere. Frieza trained for 4 months, and he became so powerful. I don't even know why they had to say. They could have just said he's been training since he died. Nope. Yeah, from beating up bandits that Kid Goku from the start of Dragon Ball could have defeated. Now he's able to fight Jiren. I told you, this show creates its own problems. And Z was nothing like this zombie. Just like with Boruto, like that thing of having the supposed main character grow up and then have a kid. Where do you think Kishimoto got that from? He even admitted that he made Sasuke Boruto's mentor to like what do you call it, emulate Piccolo as Gohan's mentor, even though I'd say if any character from Naruto has parallels to Piccolo, it's probably Gaara, but whatever. Like Sasuke is Vegeta if he was edgy, unlikable, and the whole story revolved around him. Probably had some hidden powers. Well, he sure wasn't using them when he was getting smacked up by Cell. And people in real life have catchphrases, like little stuff they say over and over. LOL, stop. His hidden powers weren't around when he needed them to not get absorbed. Yeah, Dragon Ball used to be a really creative series. I'll make a video called when Dragon Ball was creative, just talking about like what pioneering stuff it used to do and how now it's the same plot retreaded with the same 2 characters every arc. No, transformations when the Frieza saga came around were really not a thing in that show. Like again, up to that point, you had the giant form from Piccolo, you had the Great Apes, and then Frieza had a bunch of forms, but it still like wasn't a thing everybody used. 17 doesn't know his own limits. He's not in full control of his body. I mean, you can create whatever reason you want for it. I'm saying the show didn't explain where this new power up came from, and they could have. You had a 50 episode arc. 17 is one of the biggest characters in it. They could have had him train with Goku and Vegeta. But see, the issue I have, right, is that even if you want to say, oh, they did have him train, it's like they introduce him. It's like his first appearance in the woods when he fights Goku is him already strong enough to fight Super Saiyan 3 in the manga and then Super Saiyan Blue in the show. So they created this issue for themselves. All they had to do was have Goku go up to him and say, hey, your sister's competing. Can you compete as well? He goes, oh, yeah, sure, why not? And then he trains with either 18 and Beerus or some combination of Beerus, Vegeta, or Goku, and you could have instantly gotten rid of this complaint. You would have had an explanation that made sense, and they just decided not to. Even if they didn't, it's too late to talk about it now. There's no time limit on discussing stories. Dude, the Z has been out for like what, 30 years, since '89. You know how many people still talk about that show? Now we it could be 2,121 and we could still talk about it if we want to. Hell, Bram Stoker's Dracula's been out for over 100 years. People still make adaptations of that and talk about the story. It's never too late to discuss a story, ever. There's no time limit on good or bad writing being talked about. It's too late to talk about it now. You know, it's actually kind of screwed up because they like to use flashbacks, especially in Super. Like they didn't really use flashbacks that often in Z or the original, but if they wanted to, they could fix it by having a flashback where they show that 17 met Beerus during those 10 years, or he, like fought someone that was very, very strong, that was his training partner. They have all kind of ways they could still fix that if they wanted to, which would retroactively make their story better and give some development to a character that disappeared after the Cell Saga. I'm just talking about characters get stronger over time, not the anime overall. Yeah, but it's established in the series that the stronger opponents you fight, the stronger you get. So for someone who was weaker than first form Cell to be able to fight Jiren, I'd have to see him fight opponents that are stronger than first form Cell, which a bunch of poachers were not. We can all reasonably infer that. Unless you believe there was a Super Saiyan poacher. And even the Super Saiyans weren't as strong as first form Cell. I also helped me with my story writing as well. I'm just saying, if they wanted to fix it, they still could. Dude, if they had an entire arc with 17 in it, and there's like flashbacks of that time between the Cell Saga and a Tournament of Power that like shows him fighting different stronger people, you wouldn't see one complaint out of me. I would say, good job, guys. You gave 17 more character development, and you explained where he got this ridiculous power up when the show didn't. So that would be an A+ for me, a big old thumbs up. But they're not going to do it because they don't care about anybody but Goku and Vegeta. They literally brought Trunks back to have him become a failure with a destroyed timeline. Told you, Toyotaro and Toriyama, no imagination. No thought or concern for anybody. Just, guys, have you seen any of the fan manga? You can't see a manga, you read it. Someone made a review of this before we continue with that. Somebody made a review of the Broly movie where they were saying, I saw the sound, and somebody paused the video like, you don't see sound, you hear it. I just thought it was funny that like get all technical. You don't see sound, you hear it. He'll put his hand by his ear. Just so offended by this misstatement. I just like damn. Because when you record it like a review without a script, you're prone to making some kind of error in your I guess dictation. And it's like that's an error I wouldn't even think about because it's just, when you're talking about a film, you're probably going to say you saw things because you're watching it. It's like, wow, you read that, man, because he said he heard, he saw sound. But the only fan manga I've read any bit of was Multiverse, and that thing has been going on for so long, and I'm so confused. All these alternate versions of characters. That manga is starting to kind of remind me of Young Justice a little bit, where it's got a lot of characters, some interesting premises, not enough time to give to anybody. Just I've read some parts that I thought were good, but again, it's just there's too many characters for me, and it doesn't really have a central cast that like recurring characters like main characters I can get attached to. So that's been the biggest turnoff for me with that. And again, it's been going on for so long that I just my interest in it really did wane. Like that manga's been around since I was let me go and see, at least 10 years. Which again, and I want to clarify, I'm not saying that they should stop making their thing or no. I'm just saying when you have so many characters that are shuffled between each chapter, it starts to get kind of confusing because there's like periods where I'll just not read any of it and I go, oh yeah, there's that manga that is still being updated. It came out in 2008, so that manga's been going since I was 10. Oh, it's very long. That manga's been going on since George W. Bush was president. That manga's been going on since the MCU started. Okay, but look, regular shonens go for at least usually like at least 10 years. Like Naruto is 15 years, Dragon Ball was like 11, 12, whatever. For a fan manga to have gone on since 2008, like with not even like big hiatuses, right? Like a new page every 2 or 3 days. You understand where that's kind of like weird as far as, wow, these people have really been doing this for a while. In fact, actually, let me look this up. I think they've been doing Dragon Ball Multiverse longer than Toriyama made like actual Dragon Ball. Let me see. Because the original Dragon Ball was 4 years long, or 5 years, because I know that Z starts in like 89. Let me see. Yeah, so they've been doing Multiverse longer than Toriyama made Dragon Ball, because Dragon Ball was only 11 years. It was from 84 to 95. And they've been going for what, 13? Dude, you're never gonna see a One Piece fan manga go for longer than the series itself, or Naruto, or Bleach, or any of those other. Like this is the only franchise where the fans do stuff longer than the creator did. Think about that. Their fan manga has gone on longer than Dragon Ball did. That is nuts. That is absolutely insane. That's what makes me like, it's just, I'll read it maybe when it's close. I don't even know when that thing is going to end. We love DBZ. What can I say? Right, but don't talk about how long some other show is when that's an actual series made by an author. Where you guys have made a manga, not you specifically, but just these fans, a manga that is longer, that has been going on longer than the original Dragon Ball manga. Like Super hasn't even gone on for that long. Super's the manga has only been around for the last 6 years. Like he says that's actually, it is sad. More than the what? I don't even know what that last word is. So yeah, this is technically the longest running Dragon Ball manga, Dragon Ball Multiverse. And again, it's one thing if they just like didn't make it, like, let's say I do a Dragon Ball show, right? 13 episodes, takes me about a year to make the season. Then I go on a hiatus for a year and I come back with a season two. Uh, they have no hiatuses. They've been doing this every week since 2008. No, like years or months long hiatuses. They've just been updating this thing for the last 13 years. That is insane. I can't wait for the super manga to have more chapters than episodes of the show. Like, we're gonna have 100 after like the next 2 years. So they're if they go for like 9 or 10 years, they're gonna have almost as many chapters as episodes. Like I remember Merge the Masu was in more chapters of the manga than in episodes of the show. I never thought I'd see the day when a fan manga is longer than the show. Longer, like the fan manga is longer than the actual manga. It'd be really nice to be Toriyama. Like you did this series right for 11 years, and then you just kind of like whatever. You let some people make their own little sequel to it that barely lasted a year, and then like ever since you stepped away from it in '95, people just keep asking you to do more. They keep asking for like just your entire career is defined by this one series, and like no matter what other thing you do, like it's I find that really comedic. Like he walked away from it so long ago. You're like, please come back, please come back. Let me see how many chapters Multiverse is. Dragon Ball fan mangas. I would rather do a fan show because people don't read anyway. Uh, which is really pathetic, but whatever. 1,000 pages. Let me see. Oh, they're at chapter 84. Yeah, so their fan manga is apparently longer than Super is. I tell you, Toyotaro's so lazy. How are you gonna have one chapter a month? Like both Dragon Ball and Naruto used to be weekly, and now it's once every 30 days you get some 40-page crap, and then you gotta hope that there's like a little bit of it that's worth the wait. Dude, we already know the next arc of Super before it even starts. Like they're gonna kill Granola, and then or he's gonna reform, which I think they're gonna kill him, but whatever. And then it's gonna be some new villain versus Goku and Vegeta. It's like it's the same thing every arc. Yeah, but I bet those funny parodies aren't as long as Multiverse. This is the only fan base in the world where like the fan works are like, dude. Imagine if I made an Obito prequel to Naruto, right? And every chapter is like 20 pages or 18 pages, right? And I end up having 800 chapters, and I do that for like 20 years. You'd be like, your Naruto prequel is longer than Naruto. You don't see that. This is the only fan base where the thing they make goes on longer than the original thing. Now that's nuts. But the writing. Oh no, I'm not saying it isn't. This isn't a critique of their writing, right? Because I haven't even read like most of Multiverse anyway. I've read a few chapters. Like, I read the one chapter where it's the universe where Cell wins the Cell games, um, and then another one where they like build remotes to stop the androids. Just little different stuff here and there. I'm not saying Multiverse is not as good or bad compared to Super. I'm just saying that for a fan creation to be longer than the original thing that inspired it, that's an oddity. Well, I told you there actually is a guy that made an account on Twitter where all they do is talk trash about Toyotaro. Like their account literally is his name, except with like a mean like you know where somebody takes your name and they try to like change it up to like sound nasty, and they just talk trash about his art and his writing. And they're literally the only person I've ever seen Toyotaro block on Twitter. Like out of all the millions of people on that website, the only person he's ever blocked is some clown that made an account with his name and was like insulting him every single tweet. And the guy celebrated it like it was a victory. He was like, I did it, I got him to block me. And then somebody in the comment section said, I would have blocked you too. No need to do that. Well, they did it. Oh my God. Yeah, the fan manga's been going longer than the original series. No, but if I wasn't sick of voice actors, right, I would do a Dragon Ball fan show. I've mentioned that before, like about Gohan, Piccolo, and Krillin set in that year between when they leave Namek and then when Goku arrives for the like 3-year training. I just don't feel like putting up with VAs. That's the only reason. Because I had a whole story for like a season, like 13 episodes thought of, but I'm not about to sit here and have to deal with you know more stupid stuff from people on the computer. It could have been cool, but I just don't feel like putting up with the headache. It's a well, look, yeah, doing the scripts, then you got to draw up the animate, but it's like I do all that stuff for my show already, so I know I can do that. It's simply I just don't feel like putting up with voice actors. I think when you have a person who wants to write something and like bring it to life in a video, and then people are so goddamn lazy that they can't read a piece of paper, even if you give them weeks, a month, whatever. That stuff really just burns you out. So that's the biggest issue I have with doing that. But anyways, the way the show would go is that every season, one of those three, so it would either be Gohan, Piccolo, or Krillin, would beat the main villain, and like you would see all three of them training each season. Like it wouldn't be like Super where it's just Goku, 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 and then if you get like Tien or Yamcha, they would if they show up, they're actually going to like contribute to the plot. You're not going to see one of them come back just to get killed or beat up by somebody. Stupid. Hey, that's been overdone. Said indeed. That was just a really good trio of characters. I wish they could have done more with them in Super, but they botched them too. Turn one into a police officer who doesn't train anymore because it makes total sense to want your family to be safe and then not actually do anything to make that the case. Turn another one into a bookworm that refuses to train and only fights if everybody else is getting their butts whooped. Uh, Turn another one into a babysitter who has all these different unique moves but never uses them for some reason. Just ruin, ruin, and ruin, and ruin. Just awful. All right, let me see what else is here. I think we're pretty much at our final destination with this stream. Look, I'm gonna get off of here because we've been going for almost 2 hours. Or yeah, 2 hours. Uh, then says title. Well, if you actually watch the stream instead of just staring at the title, you might find there's more positive parts of it. Anyways, I'm gonna get off of here. Thanks, Stinky. We know your favorite anime is Pokemon. Your avatar spoiled you already. Brandon tried to redeem himself. He vanished. Akatsuki Merchant. Uh, Hope you enjoyed it. I'll do another one on Saturday. I might do one on Wednesday. Who knows? Have a good day.